Hi everyone, and welcome to one more episode of the Allplane Podcast, where we talk with the movers and shakers that are redefining the future of commercial aviation. As usual, before we start, I would like to remind you that all previous episodes of this podcast, as well as many other aviation stories, are available on the Allplane website. That's Allplane.tv, Allplane.tv. And there you can also subscribe to the Allplane newsletter, which I send roughly every week or so, packed with stories about this fascinating wave of innovation that is sweeping currently through the aviation industry. But now, let's go to today's episode. Our guest today is Nikita Ermoshki, the founder of Airheart. If you have not heard about Airheart yet, it is possibly because this Californian startup is still rather small, but Nikita is a man on a mission to make flying as accessible as driving. So, if Airheart succeeds, even partly, it could disrupt not just aviation, but more broadly, the way we move around. Today, a very limited number of people are qualified to fly aircraft. Even in countries with large general aviation industries like the US, the number of pilot licenses is but a tiny fraction of, for example, the number of people that have driving licenses. Because, of course, learning to fly is way more complicated and expensive than learning to drive. But Nikita and his team at Airheart think that this doesn't need to be the case. So Airheart is developing a new type of cockpit and an avionics interface that could simplify significantly the process of learning to fly and then to operate small aircraft. Nikita, who prior to founding Airheart, by the way, worked at SpaceX, another company that has succeeded in disrupting a very complex and notoriously high-cost industry, will explain us how he plans to do it, and also where his project is at now. Well, if all goes well, he expects the personal aviation market to multiply manifold. So, you've been warned about what's coming, but for the time being, and without further ado, let me welcome Nikita to the podcast. Hi, Nikita. How are you?
Hey, doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Very good. Thank you so much for being today here on the podcast. Where are you joining us from?
I am in Long Beach, California, at our office here and at my desk and workshop.
A place in California that has a very long history in aviation and in aircraft development, I think. It's one of the historical aircraft manufacturing hubs in the US, isn't it?
Yeah, so where we are at Long Beach Airport, probably at one point was a Douglas aircraft facility. It's all general aviation space now, but yeah, there's a lot of history around here, around just aviation in general, because this is one of the birthplaces of aviation in America.
Cool. So I guess that's a perfect place for someone that wants to redefine the way that people fly. You are the founder and CEO of Airheart, which is a company that you define it in your website as the company that wants to build a plane that anyone can fly. So what can you tell us about this? First of all, let's go first things first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up launching Airheart, and then what does it mean that you want to build an airplane that anyone can fly?
Yeah. So my background is I'm an engineer. I've got a degree in electrical engineering from Cornell. While I was there, I led a fully autonomous airplane project team and learned a lot about aircraft and avionics systems in general. After that was a rocket engineer and worked on avionics for high reliability rockets. And
if I can stop you one second here, I think you worked at one of the companies that are so much in fashion now, which is SpaceX.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yes.
I was wondering whether we can name it, but it's a catchy name you have there in your CV.
Yeah. It's not hard for people to find that out. Yeah. So yeah, I led the development of the avionics for like Falcon 9 fairing systems for the fairing recovery program, and was there for a few years before leaving to start Airheart. And really what we're doing at Airheart, and you want to know about what does it mean to redefine aviation. So the way we fly airplanes today hasn't really changed since they were invented over 100 years ago. What we're doing is we're really rethinking how pilots will interface with airplanes and how they will control them to make it as easy as possible, especially for people who aren't pilots today and don't want to be pilots today.
Are we talking here about hardware, software, procedures? Because there's so much involved in flying an aircraft. So I would like to go a bit deeper into how you guys plan to do that.
So really, it's all of the above. It's hardware, it's software, it's automating the procedures, really removing anything that the pilot does today manually that could be done by a computer. For example, a very, very niche example is like weight and balance. So today, pilots, when they get in a four-seat airplane, they have to do a little worksheet where they record how much everyone weighs, where they're sitting, how much their bags weigh, and make sure that's within the limits of the airframe. Uh, Part of what we want to take things like that and automate it by putting weight sensors in the wheels. If a computer can do it, it should do it, is kind of our philosophy. But the things that we don't want pilots to do is, or sorry, we do want pilots to do is still focus on like the, risk management of the flight. So pilots are really good at making decisions about, risk and safety versus computers, which are just really good at doing math. So that's kind of where we draw the line. So the way we're designing our system, and this is where all the hardware and software and everything comes together, is instead of how you fly an airplane today, which is coordinating all the different minute control surface movements with your hands and your feet all at the same time and monitoring a bunch of instruments to make sure you're doing it correctly. We have a computer handle all of that, micromanagement of the aerodynamics of the airplane, and you just move the stick around forward, back, left, right to go, up, down, up, left, and right. And the computers actually move the control surfaces of the airplane to make it execute the maneuver exactly correctly every time.
And in practical terms, let's say that the physical manifestation of this would be what? Would be like a full cockpit that you are manufacturing, or you are just doing the software and then you insert that software into existing avionics suits on existing cockpits of airframes that are already in service? How does this concept, this system, like quote unquote, manifest itself in the physical world?
Yeah, so we're developing the computers, the sensors, all the software, all the actuators, the servos that actually move the control surfaces. We're developing all of that in-house to make a complete package for our own aircraft. So, the Earhart Sling is our first model that we're releasing, and we're going to be only selling a very small amount of them. So it's kind of like we're doing a pre-order for those now. It's a 4-seat airplane, so it's for personal travel and personal use. And I'll talk a bit about the mission and why that's what we're going after in a bit. But yeah, we're targeting the 4-seat personal flying market, not the giant commercial airliner 300-person aircraft.
Okay, so you are actually planning to implement this in a clean sheet aircraft that you are developing, or are you also planning to offer this for retrofit or for line fit of other models of aircraft?
So right now, we are working specifically with a single aircraft manufacturer. So the airframe design itself is not clean sheet. It has thousands of hours of flight time already. Mm-hmm. We're just installing our new control surfaces and our control systems and avionics and everything. But we do want to explore clean sheet designs in the future to make aircraft even better after we prove the success of our simplified control system.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out the business model here. Would you be working with OEMs to offer this as an option for new aircraft, or even as a retrofit for existing airframes? And then, if I understood correctly, in the longer term, you plan to develop your own aircraft model as well.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're really only going to be working with one OEM right now. That's why it's the Earhart Sling. It's a co-branded airplane between us and Sling Aircraft.
Okay.
And that's after that, project and that model is released and we sell the 50 that we're planning to sell, we're going to work on our own clean sheet design.
Okay. And how difficult is it to create something like this? Because I imagine there's a lot of work when it comes to getting all of these elements certified and integrated with all the rest of the systems of the aircraft. Where are you now with this project? Actually, let's go one step back. When did you start this project, and where are you now? And when is it expected to enter service? I don't know if you have already flight tested it or it's not yet. It's still in the drawing board.
Yeah, I'll answer all those questions one at a time.
Yeah.
I started working on Earhart back in 2021, basically right after I left SpaceX, and I've been working on it ever since. We raised our pre-seed round in 2022 through Y Combinator, if you're familiar with them,
Yes,
and
yeah, of
other
course.
uh, other angels and VCs. And since then, we've developed two prototype aircraft, one of which, or two prototype systems for existing aircraft, one of which is kind of our test bed for the core flight controls. The other one is the actual Earhart Sling prototype, where we have all custom avionics, and both of those are flying. The system is still, obviously in development, but we're aiming to have the first airplane deliveries for customers in January of 2026.
Okay, so that's already a very advanced project. I mean, you have already flight tested it, and actually, we're talking about a bit more than 1 year and a half. Yeah, so that's
Yep.
in aviation terms, that's just nothing. And
Yeah.
what sort of certification do you need to go through?
So a lot of interesting things have come together in the regulatory space in the last several years. Between in 2018, the FAA rewrote how aircraft, small like fixed wing aircraft, it's called Part 23, get certified to make it much more open for new and novel aircraft designs. And they're also working on right now on releasing a new set of rules that govern specifically light sport aircraft and expand the definition of what counts as a light sport aircraft, such that a four-seat airplane like ours is light sport, and those have lower certification requirements than something bigger, just because the risk is lower if something goes wrong. But most importantly, for our first model for this Earhart Sling, it's in what's called the experimental home build category. So traditionally, it was for people who just wanted to experiment around and build their own planes that they design themselves. But that category has evolved into companies that basically manufacture kits that you can buy and either put together yourself, like really in your garage if you wanted to, or come to their factory and work on it in their factory with their help. And in that category, there isn't any kind of specific certification requirement. You just have to prove that you've built the majority portion of the airplane, and that's what we're working with, and that's what our customers will do to get one of these airplanes.
So what's the need that you identified here in the market? And let's put it in startup terms, what is the problem that you are trying to solve here?
Yeah, the core problem is that for the like 50 to 300 mile trip in the US, we only have one way to do it, and that's cars. Like over 90% of those trips are done by car. And, driving a car is slow. If you live in a metropolitan area, you're sitting in traffic for 2, 3 hours before even getting out. For example, like I live, here in Southern California, Los Angeles, and, I like to go to the mountains on the weekends in the winter, and spend time in the snow. And to get to Mammoth Mountain, for example, it's usually takes about a 9 hour drive on Friday afternoons because of traffic in LA and then just the driving up the valley for several hours. However, if I fly an airplane, a four-seat airplane, I can get there in under 2 hours. So like that is kind of the core problem, is that we as Americans spend a lot of time just sitting in our cars in traffic when road tripping, when there's a much better and faster way to do it. And the kind of core thing that stops us from doing it and stops the general aviation market from being really big is the fact that airplanes are really hard to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the core thing we're solving, is making it really easy to fly, such that getting your pilot's license and being able to fly proficiently and safely becomes really easy because you now have technology helping you out.
So it would be a bit like getting your driver's license and getting behind the wheel. Interesting.
Exactly.
So how big could this market get in a place like the US, for example?
Yeah. So, I mean, in the US, 300 million people live within 10 miles of a general aviation airport. And so, you can really multiply it out. And, while I don't think everyone in the US would own an airplane, but I think like we could easily make it 10 times bigger than it is today within the next 10 years. But, theoretically, it would be easy for anybody in this country to have access to an airplane to fly, whether it's for rental or because they own it.
Interesting. So basically, as you mentioned earlier, you would just sit there in the cockpit, and with just a few movements, you would be able to control the aircraft, and the computer would take care of everything else. So we're not talking about full automation here, talking about manned pilot flight, but with let's say, a high degree of assistance from the computer. Yeah.
Exactly. So you are still in complete control of the flight as the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a full autonomy system, not yet.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's, think about like how, 10, 15 years or so ago, all these like little drones started popping up on the market, and anyone could just like pick up a controller and fly them because you just push the stick around and the computers on these drones actually keep the flight stable and make sure it can, it won't fall out of the sky. We're taking those same ideas, those same kinds of concepts of putting, active control in the loop between the pilot and the actual, actuators that move the aircraft, to make sure that the aircraft is always within its like safe operating limits.
And why no one else has done it before? Because we live in an era of electric vehicles that have all these very fancy instrument panels where lots of things are automated. The same thing with UIs. And when we go onto any website right now, it's increasingly more kind of design in a way that it's easy for people to use without thinking too much. Why it hasn't happened yet in aircraft? It's theoretically a relatively potentially very large market.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to say why something hasn't been done, but my opinion on it is aviation is traditionally a place where people are scared to try to innovate. There's high costs associated with it traditionally, and anyone who's worked in space knows that a part for an airplane costs 10 times more than the exact same part for a car. And that in itself is a problem that keeps new companies from popping up and trying to do something new. With my experiences and everything I've learned in my career, like I've learned how do you actually break down those kinds of barriers and build something for the cost that it should be, not the cost that, the traditional market imposes on it. And that's what I want to do for, Earhart in the aviation market. SpaceX did this for the rocket launch market, and it worked incredibly well. I want to take those lessons and bring them to the aviation world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what are your thoughts on autonomy? As you know, there are some entrepreneurs out there that are trying to automate things completely. Particularly, there are a few in the eVTOL world and more like in the advanced air mobility space. How does your system fit into that? I don't know if we can call it a trend or into this sort of segment of the industry that is trying to get rid of pilots totally.
Yeah, I think autonomy is a super important goal. I think the more we automate as a society, the better we are. But especially with things like aviation and like mobility in general, just that autonomy in general, there's always so many corner cases that are hard to account for that it's going to be a long time before we get rid of pilots. And our stance and our belief in the autonomy space is we need to do incremental autonomy. So just keep adding, just like in the automotive market, we have these levels of autonomy that car manufacturers work towards, level 0 through 6 or whatever it is. We want to be following that same kind of model for aviation, where we start with adding some autonomy systems that, help make the pilot's job easier and reduce their workload and make flying safer, but then start actually automating more and more of the flight with the pilot's supervision and make sure that, those systems are robust and reliable and can handle all the corner cases before moving to truly full autonomy. And us starting with this model lets us get to market faster, lets us actually build a good product for a lot more people than have access to it today and have access to the benefits of flying today, while working on the improving the airspace infrastructure to handle fully autonomous vehicles, which is going to be a big coordination among air traffic controllers and airplane manufacturers and so many other organizations, just to make sure it happens correctly.
You mentioned safety, which I guess obviously in aviation is always the safety first. We have also the reference of the world of land transportation, where basically getting more things to be done by a computer could potentially improve safety. Is this the case here as well? So getting more things to be handled by by machines, basically, you think it's gonna make this segment of aviation safer?
Yeah. So just to throw stats and numbers at this, 80-90% of general aviation accidents are due to some form of pilot error. And half of all accidents are specifically due to loss of control. So the pilot lost control of the airplane and stopped being able to fly it correctly. So just by introducing a system like ours, it has the potential to immediately solve half of all general aviation accidents. And other accidents that are due to pilot error are often associated with some form of loss of control, even though that was the defining event. Our system aims to address those kinds of things. So yes, we definitely believe that by putting computers in the loop and having them assist in the flight, it'll make it dramatically safer.
And for people that wish to get on board with the system and try it, what would be the way to do it? They would need to buy one of the aircraft from you directly, or what's going to be let's say, the commercial side of your business? How are you going to distribute the system?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So ultimately, we are an airplane company. So if you want to, change the way you get around and get around in a much better way than you do today for your 200, 300-mile road trips, you buy a plane from Earhart. And right now you can pre-order our first model, which we have a very limited availability of. And so, go to our website, put down a small refundable deposit, reserves your place in line. You can come test fly it and go from there if you like.
How much does it cost?
So the airplane itself is going to cost $500,000, and then the refundable deposit that you can put down today is $1,000.
Excellent. And does it require any sort of, let's say, recurring maintenance upgrades or some sort of regular updates that would be on top of that? How is it going to be kept up to date? Basically, all the like the iPhone, for example, you get all these updates constantly about the new version is out, so just upgrade. So it's going to be the same thing here.
We'll definitely have over-the-air updates to continue to improve our system, improve how a pilot interacts with it, improve the control itself, all of that. You'll also have to just do the standard regular maintenance for the airframe and the engine, which is both legally mandated and mandated by the manufacturer of the engine, which is super important. And our system will actually help make sure you do that on time, because people forgetting to do their engine maintenance and not maintaining things correctly is also a big problem in general aviation. So with our system, we'll know when it's time for engine maintenance and make sure to remind you to go do it. Have a system that helps schedule the service appointment. So it's a much more car-like experience where the car tells you what it needs and helps you get it, versus today where you have to go hunt down for a mechanic that knows how to work on your airplane.
Excellent. And just to wrap it up, I just wanted to ask you. You mentioned you were at Y Combinator. You've got some venture capital. Are you guys looking for funding, or how are you planning to scale this up? You plan to stay like a niche aircraft manufacturer, or you want to make it big?
Yeah, so we definitely want to, scale and make it big. That's definitely the goal here, and because we want to make airplanes and general aviation 10 and 100 times bigger than it is today. So yeah, we are actively fundraising, as most venture companies do, and yeah, so we've raised our pre-seed round and have those funds, but definitely we'll be fundraising to scale to larger production.
How many of you are now working at Earhart?
Yeah, so we're a team of 6 people right now, 5 engineers and business development.
Are you sourcing part of the systems from partners? How's your supply chain? Because I guess some of let's say the hardware component of the project requires being in the aerospace supply chain.
So that's the big thing that's different for us, is the reason airplanes are so expensive today with so little innovation is that the aerospace supply chain is very long, and as a result, there's always added costs with every manufacturer. We're vertically integrating the entire system, which means we're developing all of the hardware, we're developing all the sensors ourselves, We're developing all the computers and the displays, like even the display we're putting in the airplane, it's our own design that we're building ourselves. The only things we buy, externally are like raw materials, the raw computer chips, all that kind of stuff. And then the airframe and engine itself is external as well. But everything that's core to flight controls and our avionics system, we are developing ourselves.
Okay. So at some point, I guess, to fulfill these goals of basically being a disruptive force in the industry, you need to scale this up, right? So you would need to eventually move from a more artisan process onto a more serial production type of setup.
Exactly. So, this limited number will be much more, I guess artisan is one way to put it. But yeah, as we go into the next model, which will be a larger number of aircraft built, we'll start automating the production process, having our own, production and assembly processes in-house.
What is the next milestone we should be looking for from Earhart?
Yeah, the next major milestone that we're pushing towards is really demonstrating the full takeoff to landing of a simplified control system with the person in the pilot seat having never flown a plane before. So
never before. Wow.
The way our system is being designed is that you can learn and be proficient to fly an airplane in 1 hour instead of 100 hours like it is today. And so the next milestone we're working towards over the next 6 to 8 months is to demonstrate that.
Wow. 1 hour and you are already ready to,
exactly.
fly. Wow, that would be amazing. Looking forward to it, really. I don't fly, I don't have a pilot's license, but it's always being put off by all this long, complicated process. But wow, 1 hour learning process, that's a game changer.
And of course, our customers will still have to have pilot's license. That's legally required. We can't change that, but we're going to streamline the entire process such that it is as simple as possible and feels as easy as possible to do by helping schedule with the right instructors, providing functioning airplanes to do the flight training, all the above.
I still need the license though. Yeah.
You still need the license, but a lot of people today, they spend 60, 80, 100 hours getting their pilot's license, while the FAA minimum is 40. Our aim is to get it down to that minimum 40. Okay. And part of our package for these first 50 airplanes, if you buy an Earhart Sling and you don't have a pilot's license, we'll give you all the training and get your license. So you don't have to go separately and get licensed. We'll have our own instructors that we'll work with, and we'll include the license, all the costs associated with that in the purchase of the airplane.
Sounds awesome. So if people wish to learn more about your company, what are the resources that are out there online, on the social media channels that they can check?
Yeah, we've got a lot. We just launched our new website, so there's a lot on there about us and what we do, about the airplane. If there's some, they want to learn something that's not on there, we can be reached by email. We have a contact form on the website. People can fill it out and reach us that way. We have an Instagram that we keep up to date with all the, things that we're doing and kind of sharing just more info about the company and the state of aviation in general that people can follow. Earhart Aero.
Earhartaero.com. I mention it because if you Google Earhart, there are, I think, some companies that have similar names. So just going to make sure that people get the right one. Earhartaero.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Nikita, for making time today for this chat. I'm very excited to follow the future developments at Earhart and hopefully one day be able to, learn to fly in the accelerated way that you hopefully will make possible in the very near future. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you like this podcast, you can support us by giving it a great rating on Apple, Spotify, or whichever platform you get it from. And remember, you can, of course, subscribe to it. And you can also get regular updates through the Allplane website. That's Allplane.tv. We have a newsletter where we cover the aviation industry every week with a special focus on innovation and sustainability. So give it a go. Thank you and goodbye.